he is not happy.
I want some nasty. Are we having fun yet?
All right, so I kind of see a complete conversation and discourse around the Ja Morant situation, and I definitely want to talk about it because I think it's getting out of hand, and I think it's kind of blatantly ridiculous. So I don't know if you've seen this, but Ja Morant, after the injury, in which he had an injury on his left knee, he ended up tweeting out, "Broke the code." Now, since he's deleted this, and if you don't know what he's referring to, he's actually referring to your boy Steve Kerr, in which Steve Kerr, after Dillon Brooks injured Gary Payton, he actually came out and he said, hey, Dillon Brooks broke the code and he was a dirty player. Now, I have thoughts about all of this, okay? Now, first and foremost, let's just surface level, let's talk about this. Was this a dirty play? This right here, was it dirty? Did he break the code? In which he went after his knee, and it looks bad. But here's the thing. Every single thing looks bad in slow motion. Every single play that has to do with a foul usually looks pretty bad in slow motion. And I think that this is just one of those situations. Me, personally, I think all it was he was kind of going for the ball, and he purposefully grabbed his knee just to kind of stop him from getting to the ball. And that happens all the time, whether players are tugging on each other's jerseys or grabbing them around the waist. It just happens. It's just a game of basketball, and sometimes it happens. I don't think that we need to necessarily see the outcome of every single play and make a decision off of that. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And honestly, I think that's what happened with Dillon Brooks. His foul, if you watch the foul, sure, it ended in a terrible way. Was he reckless? Yes. But I don't think that he was flat out dirty. Now, does he have a history of being dirty? He has a history of being pretty rough around the edges, but I won't go as far as saying he is dirty. Now, this is the problem that I have. Now, first and foremost, Steve Kerr. I tweeted this out and I stick by it, and it got quite a few likes and retweets, so some people agree with this. But I just really hate the fact that Steve Kerr, out of all people, want to talk about someone breaking the code when he's had a literal goon on his team in Zaza Pachulia. And people want to try to use a rebuttal with this tweet in particular and say, well, the Spurs had Bruce Bowen. Yeah, Bruce Bowen was wrong too with some of the things that he did, sure. But Zaza Pachulia, he didn't have a lot of skill to his game. He literally was a goon to try to injure other players. He did it with Russell Westbrook, he did it with Tim Duncan, and he was successful in doing it with Kawhi Leonard. So Steve Kerr has had guys like this on his team. Not only that, he currently has a guy on his team in Draymond Green who continuously does certain things that you could probably, chum up to being a little dirty. Not to say that Draymond Green doesn't have skill to his game. Obviously he does, but he does some things during the game where it's like, ugh. Now, I think that the biggest issue with this entire thing is now people are starting to look for every single play that might have been a little questionable. People are trying to rebuttal Ja Morant's argument and saying that, this might have been kind of a dirty play by bringing up this play in particular, where you can see Ja Morant kind of sticks his leg out just a little bit. It's kind of ridiculous, man. I think that a lot of this just comes down to, it's just basketball. This happens all the time. And I don't think that it's fair to assess a situation based solely on the outcome, because freakish things happen all the time. Was Dillon Brooks' injury bad? I mean, the Dillon Brooks foul bad? Yeah, it ended badly. It ended in a way that it really hurt Gary Payton's career, essentially. He ended up breaking his elbow. He didn't land correctly. And yeah, he's the sole perpetrator of that. But at the same time, the foul itself wasn't that bad. And it definitely didn't deserve an ejection and suspension where they lose him for 2 games. That's ridiculous. And now we're stuck in a situation where I really do believe the reason why the Grizzlies lost this past game, not only because they made some key mistakes, but I think a big chunk of it is the fact that they didn't have anybody to kind of slow down their players. They really tried to expose Ja Morant on the defensive end, and they were successful in that. But if he would have, this is actually kind of funny, but if he would have actually just had his boy Dillon Brooks there, that wouldn't have happened. And one thing I want to just mention as well is that it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate what happened, but it just seems like, and this is just a video of him limping, and it just kind of seems like everybody is jumping towards, oh, this play is dirty, this was awful, this is terrible. And really, Ja Morant is in his right to say broke the code. Now, Was it soon? Yeah, it was like soon after. But you could tell that that did not sit well with him, with Steve Kerr. And I just have to blame not only the NBA for actually suspending him, because I think that that's what kind of jump start this conversation, but it's definitely Steve Kerr, because I don't have anything against Steve Kerr. I want to make that perfectly clear, okay? For the most part, especially people that come from Pop's umbrella, they're usually decent guys. I don't think Steve Kerr's a bad dude at all. He's probably a decent guy. I think that this was probably his inner player coming out, but at the same time, man, just be a little self-aware. Broke the code. And as many players that he's had come in and out of the Warriors, he's talking about breaking a code. I don't know, man. I really hate it. That's really rich. That would be like Phil Jackson at this point saying you broke the code. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, no, you've had teams that blatantly tried to injure players. So don't talk that talk. And people bringing up Bruce Bowen, I think that's just a silly argument. Look, this started here. And I feel like if the NBA would have just handled this correctly and said, okay, we ejected him one game. Yes, look at the play of itself. How often does this play happen? How often does it occur? Was it made to try to injure someone, similar to Zaza Pachulia, where this was so freaking obvious that he was trying to injure Kawhi? You could see this play and you could come to the conclusion that no, he wasn't trying to injure him. It was a hard foul. And one thing that people do not bring up at all is Gary Payton II. The reason why I think Dylan Brooks essentially hurt him, but why he fouled him so hard is that Gary Payton is a really poor free throw shooter. This was one of those plays where it's like, yeah, you want him at the line, so yes, pop him a little bit. And I don't want this series to turn into, let's not be as physical because we could potentially get in trouble, because this series started off as a very physical series, especially on the Grizzlies end. And if you're not from Memphis, like I am from Memphis, okay? And I love me some hustle and flow. And one thing that they play every single game is whoop that trick, okay? They do it almost every single game, but they're not going to be the Memphis Grizzlies that can't whoop that trick just a little bit. They let them whoop the trick just a little bit, okay? It's getting ridiculous. But overall, look, I think it's a sad situation. It really sucks. I hate that this happened. I don't think that Jordan Poole broke the code. I think it's more so Ja Morant being upset. But Steve Kerr is the one who opened that door. So I don't think Jordan Poole is necessarily a dirty player. People that are bringing up Ja Morant plays where he stuck out his foot, it's so silly, dude. No, Ja Morant isn't a dirty player either. It's just some physical basketball, and some of it is ending pretty poorly. And I don't think that that's anything the NBA can do to fix that. And I think that when you get kind of hyperbolic about it and when you take it a little too far, you take away from the product, because people are going to be a little more afraid and leery to be more physical. And a team like the Memphis Grizzlies that actually had a legitimate shot against the Warriors could potentially end up messing up their shot because of this. So that's my thoughts. I don't know what this means. I was trying to figure out what this meant, but I don't know. But anyways, I'll give it to you guys later. Until next time, deuces.